Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jeanette. This is a channel where I talk about movies, TV shows, books, and anything you can think of. If you're new, welcome. And if you're coming back, welcome back and hope you're doing well. Today I am going to do another book versus movie review by talking about Divergent, both the 2011 novel as well as 2014 adaptation film. If you haven't at least watched the movie or read the book, I highly suggest doing either one of those before watching this video, but if you don't want to, that's fine. Before we get started, please like and subscribe for more content. In terms of the story, Divergent focuses on a 16-year-old girl named Beatrice who lives in a post-apocalyptic world where the remaining population lives in a rundown version of Chicago. In the city, the population is divided into 4 groups called factions. First, we have Amity, which are the hippies/hipsters of the group who love being eco-friendly and one with nature. They also do most of the farming for the city. Erudite are the smart people who focus on research and testing and look into microscopes and walk around with clipboards. Like, that's what smart people do, right? Candor are the honest people, therefore they are the lawyers of the city, which is ironic given the fact of a few lawyers in our history. Next we have abnegation, which is a public service people who run both the government and also are selfless, therefore they help the homeless.
I don't believe you.
Dauntless, they are the brave people who serve military/the police force of the city and perform parkour on their daily extracurricular activities.
Parkour! Michael, parkour! Parkour! Extreme! Parkour! Parkour!
It is believed that by having the population under factions, it keeps the city in order and creates a cohesive environment. If people fail to fit into a faction, they are labeled as factionless, which are technically homeless people for them. If a person has characteristics of some, if not all the 5 factions, they would be considered divergent and are most likely killed. One can find out by going through the simulation, knowing it's not real. For example, like jumping off the bridge instead of crossing the bridge, knowing that the scenario isn't real and they're not going to die from it. Divergents are perceived to be bad for society because the government believes that divergent will cause society to fall, but they have no proof of it. Since Beatrice is 16, she goes to her first simulation test where she sits in a chair, drinks a mysterious concoction, and goes through a simulation. And through the simulation, the test reveals where one should go or advise, because they do say in the beginning that the test is an advisement. It's not forcing someone to go into the faction. During the test, Beatrice discovers from her tester that she's a divergent, and she keeps it a secret to herself, afraid that letting her parents know will make her factionless or she will be killed by the government. The next day, the group of teens then come together at this auditorium where they take turns slitting their hands with a blade that is just wiped and not sanitized.
It's fine, I sterilized it.
In what?
It's sterilized.
Beatrice then decides to join Dauntless while her brother goes to Erudites. And note, once the teens join a new group, they're not allowed to visit their family or their former faction. She also changes her name to Triss and meets a guy named Four.
I am number 4.
Who is a lone wolf guy and was top of his class when he joined Dauntless. And despite joining their new factions to live with, the new Dauntless have to overcome a series of tests in order to become part of the group. And if they fail, they are factionless, and if they are divergent and pass with flying colors, they are killed. In each faction, they have their own version of tests for incoming members. For Dauntless in particular, their tests focus on fear. While she trains to be a Dauntless, Four discovers that Tris is Divergent because he's the tester. Instead of turning her in, he helps her pass the simulation test as a regular Dauntless who would do the items that are needed in the test in order to pass it and not kind of reveal the dark secret that she has. And while Tris is overcoming the simulation test, she discovers that the erudites are planning on overthrowing the abnegation, arguing that they should run the government because they're smart, and abnegation are lying about the food that they're supposed to give to the factionalists. But when her friends are under hypnosis to assassinate the abnegation people, Tris must stop the overthrowing plan while trying to save the life of her family and the abnegation. So in terms of how the Divergent novel turned into Divergent the movie, the novel was written by veronicaroth. This was her novel debut. She had been working on a series from Four's point of view, but decided he was not the character she wanted for the series. 4 years later, she decided to pick up the novel from a different point of view of Beatrice. The title of the book came from Divergent Boundaries, where tectonic plates move away from each other. At the time of writing her novel, Roth was completing her bachelor's degree from the creative writing program at Northwestern University. Roth wrote her novel during her senior year winter break and found an agent by the following March. Her career took off rapidly with the success of her Divergent novel, with publishing rights sold before she graduated from college in 2010, and the film rights were sold mid-March 2011 to Submit Entertainment before the novel was printed in April of 2011. The film's rights were bought after the success of the Twilight films, but it wasn't put into production until after the Hunger Games had been a success. Her first two novels sold over 5 million copies worldwide by fall 2013, just as a Divergent film was wrapping up principal photography. To determine if Divergent is a rip-off version of the Hunger Games, I'm not sure if Divergent and the two books that followed would be considered rip-offs, in my honest opinion. Yes, the Hunger Games came out in 2012, but the book was published in 2008. For Divergent, the book was made in 2010 and published in 2011. So it is possible that Roth started writing the series in 2008-2009, given the fact that she was writing on Four's point of view, if that is true. Since Roth notes she had the idea for 4 years prior to the winter break, which would mean that she would have the idea back in 2006. I feel that Divergent is more of an adaptation where it doesn't go straight into I'm stealing your ideas, but it doesn't go into the realm of I'm creating a whole universe where everyone will have whipped cream on top of their ice cream. It was also created around the time that YA novels and novel adaptations were a big hit. Twilight and Harry Potter, they were just wrapping up their film series at the time. The Hunger Games were picking up speed, and there were a dozen movies trying to be the next Twilights. However, by the time Divergent was adapted into a movie, the YA craze was slowing down, and maybe it arrived a bit too late to be considered original. Also, the book series does receive influence from other sources, so you have the main character that feels they don't belong to whatever group that they're in or in the world that they live in. It also has the ideas of people being placed in factions. They find out that they are in an experiment this entire time, and they start a revolution to take down the system, while the main character has the hots for a mysterious yet stunning guy. In terms of a ripoff level, I would give it a 6.5, with the excuse that there are other connections to other franchises outside of the Hunger Games. But like Tom Petty's blasé comment to the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Danny California having the same beat as Mary Jane's Last Dance, there is no negative intent that a lot of YA books sound alike. So the novel was adapted by Evan Doherty and Vanessa Taylor. Doherty is known for writing Snow White and the Huntsman, Tomb Raider, but not that Tomb Raider, this Tomb Raider. He also wrote The Killing Season, which I thought it was The Killing TV show, but no, it was like an actual really bad movie starring Robert De Niro and John Travolta. He also wrote the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 2014, which garnered him a Razzie nomination for Worst Screenplay. Luckily, Saving Christmas premiered that same year, taking the award. Overall, he has some hits and misses, but he's not that bad of a writer. Vanessa Taylor wrote Hope Springs, not that Hope Springs, this Hope Springs. She was also a writer and producer for season 2 and 3 of Game of Thrones, and I guess she left before chaos hit the fan. And she also wrote The Shape of Water. In 2011, Summit recruited Neil Burger to direct. Shailenewoodley was chosen to star as Trish Pryor. She was the only actress to be considered for the part, and no other actresses auditioned for that part. Instead, they focused most of their time and effort into the character for, which eventually went to Theo James after an extensive search. Jeremy Irvine from Warhorse was the first choice for 4. However, he turned it down because he didn't want to be seen as a teen idol. Lucas Till, Jack Rayner, Alex Pettyfer, Brenton Thwaites, Alexander Ludwig, and Luke Bracey were considered for the role of 4. The announcement of Theo James playing 4 was in March 15th, 2013, which is funny because every time I watch him, he always looks like that he is holding in a fart this entire time. So I'm very surprised that he was able to do his own stunts while being constipated. Woodley helped Miles Teller get the role in Divergent. So Teller originally auditioned for the role of 4, but was told he wasn't going to get it. Months later, the producers watched Spectacular Now, and they were very impressed by Miles Teller's performance and offered him for the role of Eric, who was supposed to be at odds with 4. However, Teller didn't feel like that he would pull off being intimidating towards Theo James, so he was offered the role of Peter, which he accepted after his friend Shailenewoodley sent him a text asking him to accept the role so they could work together again. In order to distinguish Divergent from the Hunger Games, Neil Burger emphasized the urban setting in contrast to the rural settings of the arena in the Hunger Games, and used lots of sharp and neon colors. The border wall in the movie was inspired by Duga radar array, which is a wall that was built at the Chernobyl exclusion zone in Ukraine. Filming began in Chicago of April 16th, 2013 and concluded in July 16th, with nearly all filming taking place in Chicago. Initially, Summit gave the film a budget of $40 million, but Lionsgate later increased it to $80 million, which was finally changed to $85 million because of the success of The Hunger Games. The filming was released in March 21st, 2014 and earned over $150 million in North America and $137 million in other areas, with a worldwide amount of $288 million. Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic gave the film's mixed reviews. However, the audience surveyor, CinemaScore, showed the audience were very receptive of the film. And in March 21st, 2014, Lionsgate officially greenlit the film adaptation of Insurgent. So in terms of the similarities, both brought up the top pillars of the structures found in the book. So it focuses on a 16-year-old girl who discovers that she is divergent and joins Dauntless. She meets a tough lone wolf guy who, when he finds out that she's divergent, helps her get past the test while preventing people from finding out her secret. She also learns that erudites are planning to overthrow the abnegation people. Al, one of the characters in the story, offs himself after trying to kill Triss in order to have him move up the ranks. Triss finds out that her mother was not only a former Dauntless, but knew that Triss was divergent. Dauntless members who are not divergent are controlled by erudite's technology to head to abnegation and attempt assassinations against the group. Triss kills Will, Christina's boyfriend, after trying to get him to snap out of the mind control. Both parents died during the resistance because they can't be a young adult movie without either one or both of your parents from dying. Four has his mind controlled, and Triss manages to get him out of the mind control by asking him to look at her because he kind of looks away when he kills an innocent. And this is like at the climax. They manage to shut down the erudite mind control technology and head to the outskirts of the city to escape in the end. In terms of the difference, the test rooms in the beginning is kind of like that they just go to a cafeteria of some sorts where they are called one by one to complete the test. There are scenes where factionless people are present, and there was one scene where Triss, when she was walking home from the test, encounters a factionless who tries to scare Triss. The simulation room is more like an open room where people can complete their scenarios in their own corners of the room. Triss's mom reveals to her that she is herself is Dauntless. When she found out that she was a divergent, her mother advises her to go to abnegation to avoid taking the Dauntless test. Maggie's character also notes that her mother encouraged her and her brother to leave Candor to avoid the truth serum test. We also see her more in the book than in the film. Same thing with a couple other characters. Triss receives multiple tattoos aside from that famous raven tattoos. And she got a tattoo of the abnegation symbol and another tattoo of Dauntless. The big test includes a couple scenarios Triss had to overcome. There was a shipwreck that was in the ocean and she had to figure out how to survive, and also the people watching the main tests, they're in a separate room above the test room. There were multiple times where parents can visit their children at different factions. One visit included Triss's mom talking to her about her test results. There were more bullying from the cool people than in the movie, so Molly and Peter were the main bullies, with Molly being more aggressive in the book than in the movie. That whole scenario where Molly says good job, that didn't happen. When the competition to make the list was getting tight, 2 people were injured. So there was a character named Edward that was stabbed in the eye with a butter knife from what people believe to be Peter one night. And after the attack, another character named Henry and his girlfriend named Myra left the group. There were people who joined a group only to never have connections or capability to work with them. A boy Triss went to school with when they were in abnegation saw that he joined Amity. However, when she talks to him, he mentions that he doesn't like Amity and only joined them just cause. There was also a boy who joined Dauntless but never jumped a train, and I think there was another one that didn't jump the hole, jumped out of the building and into the hole. During the capture the flag scene, Triss and Christina were at the top, and though Triss wanted to capture the flag, Christina argues that she already has enough to make it to the next round, so she should take the flag. Also, instead of the fight with Triss and Molly capturing the flag, there was a fight between the two at the training center where Triss decisively beats the stronger Molly, thereby improving her rank. Forward, some of the characters get drunk at times. He kind of flirts with her. He says, "I'm flirting with death." He replies with a laugh. Drinking near the chasm, probably not a good idea. It's very weird, but they kind of talk, and then he's like, "Oh, you got the crows, like those are crows on your shoulder," and she was like, "No, they're ravens." And then he was like, "Oh, okay." And then she was like, "Oh, are you drunk?" He was like, "Yeah, well, no." And then his voice softens, and then he says, "Real, I guess." I don't know what this man is trying to do. It was very cringy, especially when the book describes the scene leading up to Triss and Four kissing for the first time. And it's on page 337, if anyone is wondering. Roth writes, "He puts his hand on the rock next to him, his fingers line up with mine. I look down at our hands. He has long, narrow fingers." I'm not sure why we're so focused on the fingers at this point. We're like on page 337. Why are we focused on the fingers? Hands made for fine, deft movements. Not dauntless hands, which should be thick and rough and ready to break things. Like, what is happening? There's also a scene where Triss has a panic attack, and then she is experiencing the fear where people are going to kidnap her. And I guess Four yells at her in front of everyone because she kind of like freaks out. It's almost similar to the Bend It Like Beckham scene where Joe is yelling at Jess for like almost causing the game for them. There is also a couple of Dauntless members that were introduced in the book but never showed up in the movie, like Zeke and Uriah. Four's fear of being in a confined space occurred when Triss and Four are in a closet during the simulation. Four's abuse from his father is revealed more in the book than in the movie. The finale is a bit dull. It's almost kind of like the same format. She gets to the headquarters, she like shoots Peter, and then she gets up to the top. In this scene, it changes slightly where Four is alone on a chair watching the other Dauntless members getting ready to assassinate the Abnegation members. After Triss helps Four snap out of the simulation trance, he sends a message to the Dauntless members not to shoot. Once they get every Dauntless member out of the mind control, Four takes the data and they escape. In terms of the film, the test happens around the same time, so the scenarios are in separate rooms with the volunteer. Also, the test rooms in Dauntless are just one private room, with Four being the tester. The main test is in a stage where people are watching the tests as they talk. The violence is toned down to PG-13 level, not Temple Dune PG-13 level, but more like ultraviolet PG-13, where you don't see anything serious. I don't know, like a body part that's supposed to be inside outside. The bullies are downgraded to just baiting up and name calling. And when Triss helps her team with capture the flag, Molly tells her good job. Triss fights and beats the initiated Molly, who guards the flag during the capture the flag scene. In the film, there are no family visits. The meeting with Triss and her mother happened at a distribution site, and instead of focusing on his fingers, the movie does do a close-up of him touching Triss. There was one at the Ferris wheel scene where she almost falls and he captures her. Also, the scene where Four moves her hair right before he injects Triss with the serum. Triss gets to the Dauntless headquarters where she helps Four out of the mind control and take down a few people. So in this one, Four is in another room, but then in the main room, Janine and her affiliates are like in this like headquarter room area with all the technologies. Once he snaps out of it, the two take down the erudite bodyguards, which is kind of ironic because shouldn't they be smart? They then give the serum to Janine and order her to shut down the system, releasing the Dauntless members of the mind control. In terms of the discrepancies, the writing kind of reminds me of a James Patterson novel where there are some chapters that are like 2 pages. While good books tend to have like a longer amount of pages per chapter, really did make me feel and wonder if Veronica had to achieve like a certain level of chapters in order to get like a bonus check, or just like I have no idea. Caleb and Tris go to the choosing ceremony at the same time, but they are never described as being twins. Also, he is described as being 19. So does that mean that you could kind of almost take the test whenever you feel like it once you turn 16? Like, it doesn't make sense. Also, what is the education system? Like, it doesn't seem they go to a regular school on a daily basis. Also, it seems like college is not really a necessary thing at this point. They have this belief that factions help keep the government under control, but would you prefer having the people remain in the factions that they were born in? Almost kind of like a caste system? Because I mean, if the test reveals that they should be in a different faction, wouldn't that just automatically note that they are divergents themselves? And then since most of the divergents go to different factions, wouldn't that be like an obvious sign that if you are going to a different faction, then automatically you're divergent? And also in terms of Dauntless, it seems like that they would kind of be running out of people due to the overuse of joints and arthritis, because most of the members in both the book and in the movie, they're kind of like below 30, maybe pushing 40 or 50, especially for the leader of Dauntless. It doesn't really specify what happens once you turn like 50 or something. Like, do they do a full like midsummer and perform an end of life ceremony once they turn 50? And even the book mentions Tris having the same thought, but it's only mentioned like one time, and that is it. That is it for that. The movie does show that the train does stop, which is kind of funny because I mean, if the train can stop, then why shouldn't it stop like every single time people want to go on the train? Why do we need to parkour into the train or like jump out of the train? Also, capture the flag. It's like capture the flag. No one picked that up.
The game's simple. It's like capture the flag.
4 explains that he received the name because he had 4 fears to work with, which is the lowest anyone has ever had in Dauntless, which does not make sense because it could only change your name if you jump off of the roof, right?
You're right.
You can pick a new one if you want, but make it good. You don't get to pick again.
That would mean that he probably knew that he had 4 fears prior to joining Dauntless. So did he already know that he had 4 fears and just called him 4 when he arrived? If his name was brought up later or was invented later as a nickname and then they just stuck to it, wouldn't the people who worked in the same class as him, wouldn't they kind of like call him like by his real name? Like, 4's tattoo is slightly weird. I mean, the guy decides to have his entire back be covered in 50% of black lines and the rest just symbols of the faction. Based on the production designer Andy Nicholson, the tattoo is inspired by the 1920s abstract Russian constructivist art, and the stark lines may look conventional on paper, but on Theo James's body, he notes, they clutch and curve. They are meant to be touched. It's about following the lines that your hand might follow if you're feeling someone's back. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious, but okay. Why would you spend your entire your entire back at this point for factions that may not be relevant in like 20-50 years? Like, I don't understand. It's very weird. But also, I mean, that's commitment. I mean, that is commitment. The book is quite interesting when it reveals the tattoo. Page 404, if anyone is wondering. Tris is like, can I see your tattoo? He decides to do it, and then he lifts his eyes to mine, aka Tris, and unzips his sweatshirt. It slides from his shoulders and he tosses it onto the desk chair. I don't feel like laughing now. All I can do is stare at him. I totally agree, Tris. His eyebrows pulled to the center of his forehead, and then he grabs the hem of his shirt in one swift motion, and then he pulls it over his head, and then he averts his eyes. He says, I don't invite many people to look at me. Any people, actually. I'm like, what is happening? So it kind of just seems like that Roth wanted the scene to almost be like a segment from a romance novel, but almost like a YA version of a romance novel. It's almost like that she wanted a four in the scene to be like romantic and sexy, but then it comes off as like a creepy Wilhelm, let's just call it. So I would say that the movie changed the scenes to slightly different and less creepy, which is great. And that whole scene where Four reveals his tattoo to Tris is a lot better. But I would say that Tris's look of the reveal is kind of what a lot of people would agree with. That's our face. Also, let's just point this out. So Four is older than Tris in both the book and the movie, making him kind of like on FBI's most wanted criminal at this point, because he is flirting with an underage person.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Honestly, how is this okay? In the book, Four is supposed to be 18. However, when Theojames took the role for the film adaptation, the producers felt that he was not 18. Instead of just adding 2 more years to Tris, or having Four be played by maybe a younger guy or younger looking guy, the producers decided that they should just increase Four's age to 24. Also, for some reason, despite the age gap, the fact that Tris is 16 in this both the book and the film, it makes it seem it's like totally fine, and I'm like, it's not fine, she's underage. I tried to look up if anyone brought this up, and Neil Berger did say that Tris is slightly older than 16. If you want to avoid having a controversy of your film, maybe just change it to 18 or 19. I think Woodley is old enough to look 18 or 19. Why does she need to be playing a 16-year-old? Like, I get it. It's a YA novel. But, I mean, if you're changing Four's age to 24 for the film, then you could just change Tris's age to 18 or 19 or whatever. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I feel that the movie is okay. It's kind of like a discount version of The Hunger Games. Kind of. Not really, but like kind of. The actors are okay. I think Theo James does a really good Four. Also, Jaicourtney. I'm not a big fan of him, but I really felt that this one scene is amazing.
Who let you out?
I did.
You did. Okay.
Anselelgort kind of runs a bit funny, so I'm not sure if that's actually his run or if he was just acting like that. The book is interesting. It kind of reminds me of like a romance novel that's trying to fit in the romance scenes into a PG-13 of a YA novel. You see fingers and weirdly tattooed backs, but that's it. There's a lot of discrepancies, including the whole age gap, and I'm still surprised that it was totally fine that both the book and the film can have Tris be 16 and then Four be 18 or older. I get that this is for teens who may be more focused on the love between Four and Tris and Four himself, and maybe not the back tattoo, but mostly just his eyes. But if you're trying to compete with the Hunger Games and other YA novels, I feel that you should kind of step up your game a bit. Maybe throw some glitter on Theo James. Maybe allow him to fart once in a while of the scene. You know, maybe just a scene where he just farts and then everyone's trying to wonder who farted. You know, taking the time to edit and rewrite the book is probably a better idea, because I kind of felt that The book, while it's like pretty good, I feel like that probably could have been better if Roth wrote the book more than 2 weeks and maybe not rush to get it to be published and to get it to be adapted. Can actually be known for the strong characters and themes rather than writing about fingers and people's tattoos. So this explains this. There was an interview with veronicaroth where she doesn't even know what time frame it's set in. She quote, "The reason is it's not there is because I'm terrible at estimating time and how long it takes for certain things to happen and for changes to happen. But you could just put a timer. You could just put like a, little year, 2050. Let's just do it, 2050. In terms of the book, I would give it a 7 out of 10. While the movie, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. That is it for me. Thank you for watching this video. If you have made it this far in this video, thank you for listening through my monotone voice. So as an achievement, here is a photo of a man that is bringing awareness to an endangered species. If you liked the video, hit the like and subscribe button. I feel my goal this year is to hit maybe 15 subscribers. Right now, as I'm speaking, I think it's like 9 subscribers right now. So thank you for the 9 people who subscribed. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys next month and hopefully trying to commit here. Thank you so much. Bye.